Hello, and welcome to DREEMM, where we are focused on connecting to and building community. We are committed to helping individuals break cycles. We are delighted that you have taken the opportunity to join us. So prepare yourselves for this week's teaching and equipping session. Get ready to be educated, equipped, and set free as you listen to this week's broadcast. And thank you for joining us.
Hey, everybody. I am Pastor Kai with Dream Team. Dream stands for Deliverance, Restoration, Education, and Empowerment for Me Ministries. We're located in Cincinnati and Chattanooga, Tennessee. You guys, this is going to be a message tonight that's a little bit heavier because I'm going to speak to hurt. So I'm going to go into this, but before we get into it, I just want to give you guys some information in case you don't know. We are a deliverance ministry. One thing we will not do is get in front of you and expose anybody that we've taken through deliverance. We won't share their stories. We won't share what their experiences. We won't tell you that, I took somebody through deliverance and this demon came out and this, that, and the third. We don't do that, especially without that person's permission. Now, it's different if the person says, for teaching purposes, I'm okay with you sharing this information. We will do it at that point if we have the okay, but not for the purposes of just putting their information and their business in the street. One of the things we do though is we're very transparent with some of the things that we have endured. And so you will find the pastors of Dream and our Apostle Deborah Edwards, will frequently tell you, stories about what we've gone through, what we've experienced, for the purpose of shedding light on some of those things to show you how the enemy will work in your life, how these demons will come in through trauma and other experiences, through generational curses, and then let you know some of the things you should be looking out for, just in case you're going, maybe I need to go through deliverance, or I've had an experience like that. I think I might need this, or someone I love may need this. So for those purposes, we do pull back the cover and we do expose a little bit. This is going to be one of those nights where I pull back the covers and I expose a little bit of the hurt, because I want to God wants me to be able to speak to you, to speak to some of these things, and hopefully at the end of the night you'll find healing. That's the purpose for the message tonight. So this message, and I'm looking over to the side because that's where I have all the scriptures and everything up so that you guys can see it. But this message is called When Help Hurts. We're going to talk about the times when you are seeking help and help hurts. Now, this is not about anybody maliciously trying to hurt you, because that's a whole different subject than what we're going to talk about tonight. Malicious hurt would be somebody who is inflicting pain on you because of the gratification of inflicting pain. Like, I love hurting you. I like hurting you. Or I am intentionally trying to cause harm to you. That's something else. We're not talking about that tonight. We're talking about those people who are trying to help you, but it may cause pain in the process. So I'm going to give you two examples because I want you to get a good, clear understanding of what we're talking about. So first of all, my sister in love, her name is Mo to me, or Monique to everyone else. You may call her Monique. She and I were talking. Monique is in healthcare and she has a passion for taking care of other people and just helping them. And that's not something that you can just do unless you're called to it. But that is something that Monique does. And I just love her for her heart. But Monique and I were talking about an elderly patient that I have been watching on YouTube. And this woman was telling her story about how she had to get CPR and they fractured two of her ribs. And this woman had to be 85 plus. And so I called Monique and I'm like, Monique, this is what happened. And so I was like, this is just traumatic. Can you imagine breaking her ribs while doing CPR? And so Monique said to me, Kai, this is normal. That's normally what happens because the healthcare professional has to push down very hard to be able to pump your heart, to get your heart to pump again and pump blood through your heart. So they can't do shallow pushes. They've got to really push down, put some elbow in it. And sometimes you may get a fractured rib or a broken rib. And I remember just thinking, oh my gosh, I would have never put those two things together. That helping me, because they are helping this woman, that it caused pain. It caused hurt. It caused her to be hurt. Another story that I want to bring up is again from my own trauma, my own childhood, some of the things that I dealt with. For many of you, you've heard this story before. I've shared it here many times. But for those who are joining for the first time, this may be the first time that you hear this. As a child, I was molested, and I had shared this information with a cousin of mine. She was my safe place. She is my safe place. She and I are separated by a year and a day. That's it. Her birthday, she was born 1 year and 1 day before I was. We grew up as twins. She is a only child, but never got the privilege of being an only child because we were always around. Me, my siblings, our cousins, we were always around. So she never really had too much time where she was actually an only child. And she joked about it when she and I spent time together recently that someone asked her, what was it like being an only child? She said, I really don't know. I really have no idea. But she and I were very close. And at this time, as young as I was, I remember confiding in her and telling her, this is happening. One day, I'm not quite sure what changed for her because she had kept the secret. But this night, things changed. And she looked at me and she said, I have to tell somebody. And I remember just breaking down crying because I felt like I was going to get in so much trouble. I felt like the world was ending and I didn't know what to do. And I guess all the pressure of carrying the secret just became too much. And I just started to cry as hard as I can. I tell that because I need you to understand sometimes the person who's helping you may inadvertently have to hurt you just a little for the help to take place, especially when we're thinking about the healthcare story I told you about, or in this story, the cousin that I told you about, who is a year and a day apart from me, helping me by saying, I can't keep silent. I have to tell somebody. I have to let somebody know what's happening here. And so that help maybe at the moment did not feel like help. Later on in life, it definitely did. And I was with her and I wanted so many times to look at her in the process of the time we spent together and go, thank you. Thank you for not being quiet. But I did not get a chance to say that. So I will say that to that person. Thank you for not being quiet, even if it hurt. So, y'all, let's go ahead and let's get into tonight. Like I said, tonight's going to be a little bit heavy, but we're going to end in a good place. Let's go with 2 Samuel 4:4. Now, this story is so interesting to me because it's kind of like in the middle of another story. There is another story being told, and it was almost like an afterthought, like, oh, yeah, I forgot to say this. Let's put this in here. And then we go back to the original story. So this is the story of the son of Jonathan. His name is Mephibosheth, if I can say his name, Mephibosheth. And so in verse 4, it says, in addition, Saul's son Jonathan had a son who was crippled. When the boy was 5 years old, the news about the death of Saul and Jonathan came from Jezreel. His nurse picked him up and fled to get them. She was in a hurry when she left, and he fell from her arms and became disabled. His name was Mephibosheth. Now, what's interesting to me about this is we are introduced to him by telling what his ailment is, what happened to him. He's crippled. That's the first thing I want you to know. He's crippled, and they share that right away. He was a young boy when it happened. Now, let me tell you how it happened. Oh, yeah, and his name was Mephibosheth. And so it was interesting to me that they didn't start with his name and then go into the story, but his name is actually at the end. There was a couple of things I want to take from this that I want to bring our attention to. First of all, he was 5 when it occurred. He was 5 years old. Now, he is the son of the king, and his father, Jonathan, is actually next in line. But we know that David was promised because Saul sinned against God and did not do what God told him to do. And so the kingship actually went to David. Jonathan, his son, the son of Saul, was well aware of what was happening. But Jonathan had a special bond with David. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. We also understand when it came to Mephibosheth, Mephibosheth. With him being 5, he was too young to understand the dangers of what was happening all around him. When you think of a 5-year-old, and I had 3 of them, I had 3 of them, they are not aware of what's happening, what dangers are lurking around the corner. They are just having fun and just enjoying life. Now, I will say, 5-year-olds today compared to 5-year-olds 20 years ago are different types of 5-year-olds. So a 5-year-old today may understand a little bit more, but not 5-year-olds then. And then also, life can change in a moment. That's where we are with Mephibosheth. 5-year-old the day before, he was enjoying life, probably being cared for, living in the palace. Father's off at war. There may be some alarm in the kingdom because of what was happening with the war going on, but he's enjoying himself. And then all of a sudden, we're running for our lives. The nurse is grabbing him, picking him up, and taking off running because his life is in danger. Life can change in a moment. You can go from one moment of dancing and celebrating to weeping. We can go from celebration to mourning in the next moment. We can go from a moment of crying through a season to dancing and celebrating in the next season and rejoicing. And we can go from being in lack to now having an abundance. Life can change and flip flop in a moment. And we're always going through these ebbs and curves, these ups and downs as we're going through life, and in partnership with God. And the beauty of it is God does give us a warnings sometimes to let us know what's coming up ahead of us. And sometimes we're experiencing it in the moment. Have you ever looked at a situation and thought, I don't deserve this one? I did absolutely nothing to deserve this. I don't even know how I got pulled into it. When we look at generational curses and we look at agreements that may come through the bloodline, oftentimes it is the ones who did not consent to it who end up carrying some of the seeds. And we have heard many stories like that. Me myself, there were demons who were allowed to stay in the bloodline because no one called those things out. And there were spirits that were allowed to to move from generation to generation to the next generation because nobody understood what we were fighting against. And so unfortunately, or understood how to fight against it. And so there were things that were allowed to stay. And the same thing goes for generational blessings. So it's not just generational curses that we need to look at, also generational blessings and how that translates and how that moves throughout the bloodline. One thing I've spoke about before was I did not know I came from a family of seers. So all I know is I'm a teenager having these dreams and I'm not quite sure what's going on. There is something wrong with me. I feel like I done did something wrong. I'm scared to sleep. I'm calling my friend who's scared to sleep also because she's hearing about these dreams. And it never occurred to me that this was something that other people in my family also experienced. And so what the enemy can do is make you feel like you're on an island by yourself and that you are the only one who's going through this thing. Nobody's ever went through it. You are all alone. Nobody cares about you because he loves to isolate you from anybody who could speak a word and get through to you and lead you to God. And so what he wants you to do is put up walls all around yourself so he can continue to pile on more on top of you until you are completely suffocated, until you completely surrender, or till you completely give up. And so that's what the enemy loves to do in stories in your life, is do things like this. Just complete piling on, okay? So what happens next? In this story, the nurse was trying to save Mephibosheth's life because he is the heir to the throne. We know what happens to heirs when people come in and take over. We see this in the animal kingdom as well. When a different animal comes and take over, they kill any offspring of that particular prior leader. And so that is what's going to happen to this 5-year-old little boy. So what this nurse does is she goes, I have got to help you. I've got to rescue you. And how I'm going to do do that is I'm picking you up, I'm carrying you, and I'm running. It wasn't about just get herself to safety. Her mindset was on getting this little boy to safety as well, because she had taken care of him for his life, and years before, she had built a bond with him. And sometimes, you build such a bond with that child, it is like that child is your child. And so she didn't second guess. She just grabbed this 5-year-old and took off running. Now, in the process of running, what ends up happening is the nurse drops him. He falls out of her arms. And when he falls, he breaks his legs. And in breaking his leg, he becomes crippled from that particular fall. He becomes disabled. So, you guys, she was helping. She had the intentions of helping. She had the intentions of taking care of him. But in the process, she ends up dropping him. And now his entire life is changed by that moment. We went from the day before of discussing earlier how it might have looked for him the day before to now what it looks like running in fear. In an instance, there are physical issues that we can see with our eyes. In this case, and the case with the person whose rib is cracked. With our eyes, we can see, maybe, there's bruising. Maybe there's discoloration. Maybe there is, depending on the break, sometimes you can even see the break without an x-ray. We can see it. But some of the trauma that we carry from the people who have loved us and tried to care for us, but inadvertently may have hurt us, you may not be able to see that. And sometimes we respond to it differently. Where somebody may cry because they've been hurt, and there are certain triggers that may cause them to become upset and they may cry. Some other people may respond in anger. I'm angry at everybody because this happened to me. Some other people may isolate. So I don't let anybody get close to me or, in proximity with me, because I don't want anybody to get close enough to hurt me. Some people respond completely different. I have programmed myself not to think about those things and just keep going. And so that is how I handle it. I just keep going. I don't deal with it. I don't go back to it. I don't talk about it. I don't address it. It's done for me. And they have buried it so deep that they just it's buried. Like you can't uncover it. And for other people, they have gone through the healing process and they no longer are are feeling any type of emotion or anything towards the situation because they've been healed of the situation. And so they're able to talk about it and share the story with other people so that they too can go through a healing process. And so that is a little bit of the difference about some of how that trauma may come out. But again, I want to talk about the trauma that comes out in different ways, the ones who may end up angry, because you may have a conversation with that person and you don't understand why that person is always lashing out. Why are they always angry about something? There is something always wrong with this person and they just get mad in a heartbeat. Or, I say the slightest thing to that person and they completely break down crying. It is so irritating. I can't say 2 words to that person. We don't always understand what's hidden beneath the surface of that individual. That's why it's important that we pray for discernment when we're interacting with people, so God can begin to tell us what may be there. Because sometimes God will expose, what that person is dealing with. And sometimes what ends up happening is God reveals, be gentle, be patient, or how to interact with that person so that you can bring them to him so that he's able to heal that individual person. And that may be your conversation you have with them. But if I'm responding out of emotion because you're responding out of emotion and I don't know why you're responding out of emotion, so now I'm in my feelings, we start reacting in ways that don't represent God. And so that's why it's very important that you are asking God for insight. God, give me clarity on what I should speak, because it may be your assignment to God. God may have you on assignment to be able to bring that person into relationship with him. Maybe there's a word that he's going to put inside of you that you are going to release. They didn't hear it when I released it or when their pastor released it or when anybody else released it. But God has put something in your belly, a seed in your belly. And when you speak, chains are going to fall off of them. And so it's important that you begin to pray, God, give me the words to speak to this person and give me wisdom on how to handle them, how to deal with them, and how to lead them to you. If that is what you need me, if you have designed me to do that, if you're calling me to do that. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about a dream I had. And at the time I had this dream, I did not think this dream was for this message, but it absolutely is. So in this dream, I saw a man, and the man had a lot of scabs on his head, all over his head. I know this man in the dream, I know who he is. But he has a lot of scabs on his head, and they are like pus that is dripping out of the scabs. And it's kind of like they've scabbed over just a little bit. And there was this woman standing behind him with a comb, and she is picking at each one of the scabs. And I can tell when he's wincing that it hurts, that he hurts, but he's sitting there, he's sitting still, and she is steady just picking at the scabs. And so I walk into the room and I see what's happening. And so I look at the woman and I say, stop. And so she looks at me and she, startled to see me, and she immediately stops. He gets up out the chair, he grabs me by my arm and takes me to a picture of him. And he said, this is what I used to look like. This is who I used to be. And in the picture, he had a full head of hair. There was no scabs, there was no pus, there was no anything. This represents what this man looked like before hurt. After being hurt, we long for two things. There are two things we absolutely long for. And the things we long for is, one, to go back to normal. That's the first thing we want. I want to go back to normal. And then the second thing we want to do is we want to numb the pain. So whatever I can do to get this pain to go away, that's what I want to do. And that's a critical place because, one, you can either find a good way to cope with the issue, to numb the pain, not numb it, but God, I need you to take this pain away. Or you find some ways that you should not use to numb the pain. So some of those ways that we respond to trauma may be, one, alcoholism. We talk about this all the time. It can be addiction to a multitude of things. Addiction is not always drugs or alcohol. Addiction can be shopping. Addiction can be having sex. It can be, I'm addicted to love and relationships. It can be, I'm addicted to porn. It can be, I'm addicted to eating. There's so many different things that you can find an addiction to. And really, it is a way to pacify the pain. So when the pain starts to well up or starts to swell and you start to feel it overwhelming you, your mind goes, I need to numb it. So you start looking for your pacifier, whatever that addiction is, to make the pain go away. And so that is the dangers of, some of the traumas that we carry. The other part is we want things to go back to normal. So we long for a time where we did not feel this pain. Oftentimes that is where a spirit of fantasy can come in, because I am longing to go back to where I didn't feel pain before. I didn't feel this before the incident. So the last time I had a great time before this incident was ... And you find yourself living in a fantasy in your mind of before the pain happened, through the good times. And you are remembering all of the good times. So you live in this fantasy of the good times. And then the fantasy kind of evolves from there. So I need to feel better. If I'm in a relationship where I don't feel better, I start looking for the escape. The escape can be through other people. The escape can be through social media, because, I am showing who I am and I want the people to see that I have this great life. And so I've created this great world around me, and I have created this visual of perfection that people see. So they don't really see, I'm struggling or I'm having a hard time. And so that's how it can interfere or show up in the fantasy realm. And so that is also another spirit that you may be dealing with. So let's move forward because I want to go forward from here because I don't want to keep you guys too long. So let's go to 1 Samuel 20 and we're going to go to 14 through 16. 1 Samuel 20 and 14 through 16. And it says, now this is the promise between Jonathan and David. So this is before Mephibosheth incident ever occurred. Now, is this before he was born or is this after he's born? That we're not too sure of, but we do know that there was an agreement that was made between David and between Jonathan. Let's talk about it. Jonathan says, but as long as I live, verse 14, it says, promise me that you will show me kindness because of the Lord. And when I die, never stop being kind to my family. The Lord will wipe each of David's enemies off the face of the earth. At that time, if Jonathan's name is cut off from David's family, then may the Lord punish David's house. So let there be an agreement between you and I, Jonathan said. And this was at the time where Saul was after David. And David tried to relay this information to Jonathan, but Jonathan is the son of Saul and did not want to believe that his father wanted to do anything bad to David. And so they came up with a plan. Here's what we're going to do. I'm not going to be at the feast, the new moon feast. I'm not going to come, and you're going to go ahead and go. And if your dad asks, Saul asks, why am I not here? And you say because he decided to go with his father and his brothers. And if he's not upset, then fine. You come out here, you come and get me, I'll come to the feast. But if he is upset, here's what I want you to do. So they devised a whole plan around this. And what ends up happening is exactly what David said was going to happen. His father, Jonathan, found out, does in fact want to kill David. And as a matter of fact, in 1 Samuel 20, it says that Saul actually pulled out a spear on Jonathan because he was so mad at Jonathan for letting David get away. So as we go on to 1 Samuel, let's go down a little bit. Let's go 20 and 42. It says this is after it happened, after the incident between Saul and Jonathan. And Jonathan is telling David, you were right. You were right. And they devised a plan with his servants and with his arrows and where to go to get them. And if he said, go, they're beyond you, then at that point, that was David's signal that, yeah, keep running. My dad is coming. He then sends the servant away so that he can have a conversation with David alone. And this is what the conversation is. So at 1 Samuel 20 and 42, it says, go in peace, Jonathan told David. We have both taken an oath in the Lord's name, saying, the Lord will be a witness between me and you and between my descendants and your descendants forever. So they made an agreement and a pact at that moment that there would be peace between Jonathan's descendants and David's descendants. Now, I want to go on to 2 Samuel 9:13 because David honored that promise. That promise that he made to Jonathan as Jonathan was trying to look out for his friend, knowing full well what God said about David going on the throne and Jonathan not being able to take the throne. Jonathan still did not spitefully go after David. He didn't try to, kill David so that, we can keep the throne in our lineage or anything like that. They were the best of friends. And so because of that friendship and because of that agreement, it not only set the tone for David, but even after Jonathan passed away, Jonathan was killed in battle, and so was Saul. Even after both of them were murdered, David kept his promise to Jonathan and made sure he cared for Jonathan's offspring. And so that's what we find in 2 Samuel 9 through 13. And I'm sorry, 2 Samuel 9, 1 through 13. And it says, David asks, is there anyone in Saul's family to whom I can show kindness? Now, that says a lot. Let me stop right there because Saul was after David. Saul was seeking David to kill him, purposely kill him. And there were two instances where David was able to get close to Saul But David did not do that. He would not kill Saul. And he said, how do I raise a sword against the man that God anointed? God, yes, you told me that I'm going to get the place. I'm going to be king, but I'm not about to kill the current king. You anointed this man. So if you say he's got to go, then God, it'll be by your hand, but it will not be by mine. And that says a lot about the character of David, because I don't know many people who would have reacted in the same, especially if you coming to get me. If you coming for my neck, then it's war. We gonna fight each other. But in this instance, that is not what David did. And as a matter of fact, the man who brought the word that Saul was dead, because he killed Saul. He killed him because Saul was dying, and he asked the man to kill me. Don't let the enemy kill me. So the man killed him, took his crown, and took the ring off of his arm and brought it to David. And David killed him. He said, how dare you raise the sword against the man that God anointed? So he killed him. And then he also killed the person who killed Abner, which is one of Saul's soldiers. And so the person who killed Abner, he told the whole family, you guys are going to die, all of y'all. And he actually, he cursed them. He did not kill them. He cursed them. And so honor was important. Integrity was important to David. And that's another reason why the Bible speaks so highly of David. His heart, he had a heart after God, because it wasn't what I want in the flesh. He had to stamp down his flesh a lot. And as a matter of fact, after the word came that Saul had passed away, David fasted. Saul had passed away. He fasted, and he prayed, and he wanted his people to. He cried and he ripped his clothes, because this wasn't a rejoicing moment. Yes, you about to be king. This was the king has died, and he still honored him, even though Saul did not love David in the same regard. It is easy to love somebody who loves you. It is easy to show compassion to somebody who shows compassion to you. It is easy to speak highly of somebody who speaks highly of you. But in this Christian journey, we oftentimes have to put on a face where we love somebody who is not loving to you, who is not kind to you, who does not speak highly of you, who does not think highly of you, who insults your God. And you still have to remember that you are a representation of God. And unless God tells you to move against that person, you better sit still. You better sit still. If God didn't tell you to do it, don't you dare do it. And how dare we fix our mouth to curse who God is blessing or who God has called. So let's go ahead and move on from here. I didn't want to get stuck there. So David is asking in verse 1, who can I show? Is there anyone left in Saul's family to whom I can show a kindness for Jonathan's sake? So because I made this agreement with Jonathan, is there anybody in the whole family, not just Jonathan's descendants, but anybody in the family that I can show a kindness to? Now Saul's family had a servant whose name was Ziba, who summoned to come to David. Are you Ziba? The king asked. And he said, yes, I am. And he asked him the question, is there anybody that I can show kindness to? And Ziba told him, Jonathan has a son who is disabled. And King David asked, where is he? And Ziba told him where he is. And so King David had him brought to him, Mephibosheth, the same man who is crippled, y'all. And so he asked him, was he Mephibosheth? He said, yes. And then verse 7, it says, don't be afraid, David told him. I will certainly show you kindness for your father Jonathan's sake. I will give back to you all the land of your grandfather Saul, and you will always eat at my table. Now, you guys, for a man that is crippled at that time, it would have been hard to, be able to make any type of income, because his grandfather was a former king. Sorry, guys. his grandfather was a slain king and his father was also slain. He was hiding, more than likely. And also with him being crippled, he may have been struggling. I remember the time where I could move my legs, where I was not crippled, and now I'm enduring this. And I'm enduring this because of the fact that someone was trying to rescue me and get me to safety. My nurse was, and drop me in the process. And so he may have a lot of internal issues that he was dealing with. For the now king to call him forward, Mephibosheth may have been nervous or afraid to go before David. You don't know if he's about to kill you or not, but he has to go before him, and he's bowing down before him. And the king now tells him, "Here's what I want to do for you. I want to bless you. I want to bless you." And so Mephibosheth bowed down and he asked, "Who am I but a dead dog?" And then he tells Ziba, "This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give him this land, and you and your sons are going to harvest it, and he's going to eat at my table." And so not only am I going to give you the land, because I know you're not able to work the land that I'm going to give you, here's what I'm going to do. Your servant and his sons will work the land, which means this now gives him not only land, but it also gives him revenue. It also gives him the ability to care for his family moving forward. And David has kept his promise to Jonathan, the promise that he made all those years ago. He's able to now keep that, and he's able to do it through Mephibosheth. And Mephibosheth had a young son whose name was Micah. Everyone who lived at Ziba's home became Mephibosheth's servant. However, Mephibosheth was disabled, lived in Jerusalem. He always ate at the king's table. And so, you guys, there may be some things that are stored up for you, because I know we talked about how the generational curse side, and we did talk about the blessing side, but there may be some things that God has stored up specifically for you that you may not be aware of. And although you may feel hurt in a certain area, maybe you feel like I'm carrying this pain, or I'm carrying this trauma, or I'm carrying, these feelings and emotions, and I'm not quite sure how to navigate through them, and I'm not quite sure how to deal with them. I'm going to ask that you do reach out to the Dream Team, or find a deliverance ministry that you are comfortable with in your area, and definitely reach out to them to talk about the issues that you're having and go through the deliverance process. One thing I always tell everybody, it's not always a one time you go in, you come out, you feel completely cleansed. Sometimes there are some other issues that may need to be dealt with. It is just like when you go to the doctor's office. If you go in for high blood pressure, guess what? You don't always walk out immediately feeling better after you get that first prescription. Sometimes they have to adjust. Sometimes they have to call you back because there's something else. Well, it was high blood pressure, but you're also having this symptom, which lets me know it's also this. That is the same way that deliverance works. So don't feel like I've already gone through a deliverance session, and one time, and then now my life feels like it's even more chaotic, or something else has happened. There's also times where we ourselves reopen doors that were closed when we went through deliverance. So for instance, if you are delivered from a spirit of lust, but you go back home, and for the first few days, you feel good. I feel delivered. But then I start looking at things I shouldn't be looking at. Then I start talking to the person that I was having sex with before. And, we just going to go out to eat, and that's it. We're not going to do nothing else. And then gradually lust starts creeping back in because I've allowed that door to come open. Those spirits will leave for a season, but they will come back to see if they can get back in. And so if that door is open, the place is swept clean, and they do have the ability to come back in, the Bible says they will bring in 7 other demons that are more stronger than the demon that left. And so that's why it's important that what we teach as deliverance is we teach you not only how to get delivered from a thing, but we teach you how to stay delivered, how to stay strong, what you should do afterwards, what you shouldn't do afterwards. But it's up to you. You've got to be able to make decisions to keep that door closed. I'm not reopening it. I know what it was like when I was dealing with a spirit of lust before I went through deliverance. I'm not trying to go back there again. I knew what it was like dealing with this spirit of addiction before I went through deliverance. I'm not trying to reopen that door again. So, you guys, I want to thank you for coming out and joining. Again, I'm Pastor Kai with the Dream Team. If you are going, hey, yeah, I think I'm a good candidate for deliverance. I think I want to go through this, or I want to talk to you guys to get more information. Here is our email. Feel free to reach out to our team. You can sign up for deliverance on our website. It is actually when you go to the website, which is www.dreemm.org. When you go to the website, at the top banner, there is a link that you will click on to complete the deliverance packet, and that will get the process started for us to take you through it. You guys, this has been another Truth Tuesday. I thank you for joining, and